Story 1. Something in the woods was watching us. We rented the cabin because it looked calm. That was the word Emma used when she sent the link. It was one of those modern cabins, all wood and glass, sitting alone at the edge of a forest that looked too dense to walk through. The kind of place that feels expensive just because there's nothing around it. We got there just before sunset. By the time it got dark, it had started raining. That soft kind that turns everything quiet instead of loud. There was a covered veranda wrapping around the side of the cabin, with a built-in fire pit and those low outdoor chairs that make you lean back more than you should. We brought drinks out, lit the fire, and just sat there, listening to the rain hit the trees. It felt right, like we'd done something good by coming there. Alex was the one who had insisted on the trip in the first place. "This is exactly what I needed," he said at one point, leaning back, looking out into the trees. No people, no noise, just this. He gestured vaguely at the forest, the rain, the fire. "Yeah," I said, "until you hear something out there and regret saying that." He laughed. "If something's out there, it's more scared of us." Emma said. "That's what everyone says right before they die." We all laughed at that. It wasn't serious. Nothing about it felt serious. I don't know how long we'd been sitting there when we first heard it. It wasn't loud enough to stop the conversation immediately. Just something off in the background, a sound that didn't match the rain. It came again a few seconds later. Something moving, not crashing through the forest, not running, or just stepping, slow, careful, like it didn't want to be heard. We all kind of went quiet at the same time without saying anything. "You hear that?" Emma asked. Alex tilted his head slightly, listening. "It's probably just an animal," he said. It sounded close, closer than I would have liked. Another step, then nothing, then another. Not random, not like an animal searching around, more like pacing. "I'm going to check," Alex said, already starting to stand. "You don't have to," I started. "I'll just go a few meters," he said. "Make sure it's nothing." He grabbed his phone, more out of habit than usefulness, and stepped off the veranda. The light from the fire followed him for a second, then dropped away as he moved toward the trees. "Don't go too far," Emma called after him. Yeah, he said. We watched him for a moment, his silhouette fading into the dark. Then he was gone. We stayed out there for another minute or two. No one really said anything. It felt strange to keep talking. "Should we go inside?" Emma said finally. "Yeah," I said, "just in case." We left the fire burning and went in through the sliding door, pulling it shut behind us. Inside, everything felt warmer, smaller, safer. We could still see the veranda and part of the forest through the glass. I checked the time on my phone. "Has it been long?" she asked. "Like 10 minutes, maybe." "That's a bit much for a few meters," she said. I nodded. We waited. Every now and then we thought we heard something outside, but it was hard to tell what was real and what was just the rain. "Should we go get him?" she asked. I looked out into the trees again. It felt deeper now, darker than it had before. "I don't know if splitting up is smart," I said. "We wouldn't split up. We go together." "In that?" I gestured toward the forest. She didn't answer. We kept waiting. Then there was a knock. Not on the front door. On the glass behind us. We both jumped. Alex stood on the veranda, just outside the sliding door. He looked soaked. Hair flat against his forehead, jacket dripping. "Jesus," Emma said, rushing to open it. "Where the hell did you go?" I asked. "Just further than I thought," he said, stepping inside. His voice sounded normal, maybe a little out of breath. "Did you see anything?" Emma asked. "No," he said. "Probably just a deer or something." He closed the door behind him and stood there for a second, like he was waiting for something. Then he moved past us into the living room. We went back to sitting. The fire was still visible through the glass, flickering out there alone. Alex sat down on the couch across from us. He didn't say much at first. I figured he was just cold, or thinking about whatever he'd heard. "Guess it wasn't more scared of us," Emma said after a while, trying to lighten the mood. Alex looked at her. Then he smiled. "If something's out there," he said, "it's more scared of us." The exact same way he'd said it earlier. Same tone, same little shrug at the end. Emma laughed softly. "Yeah, you already said that." Alex just gave a small shrug, like he hadn't noticed. "Yeah," he said again, a bit quieter this time. It wasn't like anything was obviously wrong. We just didn't really get it going again after that. You know when a conversation kind of dies, but no one wants to be the one to say it? It was like that. Emma tried anyway. "So, how's work been?" she asked him. Alex looked at her, not confused exactly, just blank for a second. Then he smiled a little. "Same as usual," he said. "A beat. Nothing new." Emma nodded. "Right." Then, after a second, "Didn't you say last week your manager was quitting?" Alex blinked. "My, what?" "Your manager," she said. "You told us." "Oh, yeah." Another small pause. "Yeah, no, it's the same." No one said anything after that. It just kind of dropped. A few minutes later, I asked him if he was still going to visit his parents next weekend. He looked at me like he was trying to place what I meant. "My parents?" "Yeah. Your mum was going to cook something new." He stared at me for a second too long. Then he laughed a little. "Oh, yeah, them." Like it was a joke he was catching up on. Emma shot me a quick look. Not panicked. Not even really worried. Just that small quiet. Did you notice that? We didn't say anything about it. Because what would you even say? He'd just been out in the rain. Maybe he was cold, tired, zoned out. People get weird sometimes. So we just sat there. The rain kept going. Alex didn't look at his phone once. Didn't move much at all, actually. Just sat there. Watching. Not staring at us directly. Just aware. Story 2. The Portraits. Rewrite of the creepypasta with the same name. There was a hunter who lost his way deep in the forest. He had been out since early morning, moving further in than he planned. When he finally stopped to look around, nothing felt familiar. The trees stood close together, and whatever direction he had come from was no longer clear. It was getting dark. He chose a direction and kept walking. After what felt like hours, the trees began to thin. There was a small clearing, and in the middle of it, a cabin. It looked old, but solid. The wood was dark and weathered. No light came from inside. The door was slightly open. He stepped inside and called out once. No answer. There was only one room, a table, a chair, a narrow bed against the wall. Everything was still. He set his things down and sat on the bed. He would leave in the morning. After a while, he began to look around more carefully. That's when he noticed the walls. They were covered in portraits, a dozen of them, framed and hung close together, covering nearly every part of the room. Each one showed a person, different faces, different ages, all painted in careful detail. Every face was directed toward him, not vaguely, not generally, directly at him. Their expressions weren't neutral. There was something in them, tight around the eyes, set in the mouth, filled with hatred and malice. Staring back, he grew increasingly uncomfortable. Making a concerted effort to ignore the many hateful faces, he turned to face the wall, and exhausted, he fell into a restless sleep. Sleep came unevenly. He woke a few times during the night, not moving, just aware of the room behind him. When he woke properly, it was morning. The room was filled with light. He turned over slowly and sat up. The walls were bare. No portraits, no frames, only windows, large ones, on every wall, letting in the morning light. Story 3. I got stuck in a cabin on a snowy winter night. What I witnessed can't be of this world. By Reddit user Postmortem33. I grew up treasuring nature so much. If I went to the woods, fishing, or in the mountains, the tranquility these experiences brought with them had no match. Some were even ethereal. I could feel Mother Nature living and breathing, always ensuring I had everything I needed while stepping on its rich grounds. Last year, I bought a cabin up in the mountains. I have always liked to disconnect from the city in the cold winter and just go to a place that feels like magic. This cabin had the feeling of being somewhere in that realm. Excitement took over me when I thought I finally had my own place in the snowy mountains, away from the city, away from work, and from people who make so much noise that sometimes I just need a little breather. So the acquisition of the log cabin couldn't have come at a better time. With my head almost exploding and my mind fogged with the dullest things and the most mundane tasks possible at work, I couldn't wait for a few days to recharge my batteries with no other than my trusted associate, my daring sidekick, and my best friend, the Irish setter Blaze, who had just turned 6 years old. I decided to pack all the things needed and go. I drove for almost 3 hours. The trees hung heavy with snow, and the flakes fell slowly on the ground. I felt like being in a fairy tale. A vastness of white that conquered all the old land for miles and miles in front of my eyes. I stopped the car somewhere along the way to get fresh water from a spring that ran through the frozen woods. The sight was a spectacle, and I couldn't help but drink. It was so cold I felt my chest turning to ice. Yet it was so refreshing, so I took a few gallons with me for the cabin so Blaze and I wouldn't get dehydrated. I reached the cabin in the afternoon. The temperature began dropping as nightfall approached. I had maybe 2 hours tops of daylight. I parked the car, took the supplies and food inside, turned on the generator, grabbed some firewood, and threw it into the fireplace. I poured some gasoline over, and the flame engulfed the logs. After that, I began shoveling the snow on the front porch and around the house. I also took my hunting rifle, because I thought a rabbit stew wouldn't hurt anyone. I always liked it, and Blaze liked it too. Time passed quickly enough, and after finishing all the chores, the time came to go inside and make some food. I had some canned dog food for Blaze, and as I felt my stomach growling, the mouth-watering image of sausage and eggs on toast came to mind. I lit some candles to make the ambience more pleasant. I also turned on a lantern, and everything seemed to be perfect. Night fell over the isolated cabin, and the winter winds howled outside over the infinite blanket of snow. Shadows danced on the walls like little devils. The crackling wood sang its song, bringing peace to my tired mind. The cabin felt like a gift from God. I had no television to distract me, and didn't check the internet. I only kept my cell phone with me as a precautionary measure, because accidents could have happened. Even though the reception had been pretty bad, it still allowed to call 911. After finishing eating, I enjoyed a beer and a book. I fell asleep in an instant. Poof, just like that. The fresh air has had this effect on me ever since I was a kid. The book fell from my lap and thudded on the floor. I instantly jolted awake and saw Blaze looking at the door. He stood still, mildly growling. "What's wrong, boy?" I asked. I could see he was trembling both with anger and fear. He began nervously barking. I had never seen him like that before. Outside, in the howling, wintry winds, I heard some sort of static sound, combined with a low, gurgling sound. It was as if someone was zapping through a broken TV, where one channel was just annoying static, and the next was unspeakable monsters raging. I peeked outside and saw nothing. Then I grabbed my rifle and wanted to open the door and check it out in person. Yet Blaze wouldn't let me do that. Instead, he stood before the door, barking at me this time. Whatever roamed outside, Blaze felt it necessary to let me know if I went there. I would have found only death. What the hell is that thing out there? God damn it, I whispered to myself. I glanced outside the window again, and I thought I saw a shadowy figure looking at the cabin. It looked back, and then went out of sight. Blaze barked as loud as his lungs could take it. "Blaze, come here, boy. Get here now," I called him. The only weak point was the window. If whatever was outside wanted to jump through like a beast, I said, let it have it. I would have put 2 bullets between its eyes in seconds. Blaze would have probably eaten the whole thing in one big fat meal. The static and gurgling sounds never ceased, even though the creature had vanished. I rechecked the window. Nothing. I only heard those damn sounds. After a while, a large band came from the door. And then it came again, repeatedly. It shook, and I got my gun ready to shoot. If that door had fallen, the death of whatever was on the side would have been swift. "Hey man, open up. These things outside will kill me, please," the voice of a scared man said. He kept banging on the door, as if his life depended on it. And it did. If I didn't act fast, the poor man would have been mauled to death by whatever beasts roamed the old mountain. "Hold up! I'm coming!" I cried. I had to help that moorman. He was probably lost, scared, alone, and dehydrated. Blaze jumped in front of the door. He barked at me again, pushing me back. Something was wrong if he did that. "Come on, man. Just open the goddamn door already, will ya?" He banged again. Blaze kept on barking violently. "Sorry, Hoss. No can do," I replied, understanding that this was something else, not a man. I trusted Blaze more than I trusted myself. He was one brave and intelligent dog, a true friend and companion. The beast howled, and I heard its voice changing as it drowned. It coughed, it spat, and I thought it was asphyxiating. "Sweetie, can you please open up for Mama? I have a gift for you." It took me so long to find you, and I want to give it to you," my mother's voice said. "What the—" I said, almost dropping the rifle from my hands. "My mom died when I was just a kid, and except for her warm smile, the voice was the only other thing I remembered about her." Then banging noises came from around the house, as if the number of creatures outside had grown exponentially. I had gone there expecting to find paradise in solitude, but it turns out hell had frozen over in that exact place. Nothing natural and of this world could have made those noises, and then mimicked my dead mother's voice. Again, I checked the situation outside. The shadowy creatures had grown in numbers. I counted 12 of them. 6 just stood motionless, while the other 6 growled, snarled, and howled in the dead of night. I saw one of them coming closer to the window and went a few steps back. It glued its dead eyes to the window. It didn't have a nose, just 2 small holes. Its mouth was a straight horizontal line. It opened it and sucked on the window. In doing so, it revealed small rows of sharp teeth. "Why don't you open up for your dear old grandfather? It's cold outside, sonny boy," the creature snarled. "Grandpa died too when I was just a kid. After my mum's death, he had a heart attack because he couldn't cope with her being gone." I just looked at it as it mimicked my grandfather's voice. I don't know how the hell it knew my mum's or my grandfather's voice, but it happened. Maybe it read my mind and browsed my memories. Maybe by doing so, it extracted their voices from my head. Hell, this sounded crazy as hell to me. But what I had witnessed shouldn't have been possible. And just seeing that craziness, every scenario I thought of might have been likely. The glass began to crack under the pressure of the creature's face. But fortunately, I had parked the Jeep right in front of the house, so that I might have just made a run for it. The banging all across the house intensified, and I felt the pressure of death clawing my heart. The window would give in soon, so I said to hell with it. Instead, I pointed the rifle straight at the ugliness and pulled the trigger. It blasted its head into millions of pieces, and everything stopped. "Blaze, we're going to make a run for it, buddy," I said, hoping for the both of us to escape that mess. I grabbed a burning piece of wood from the fireplace with one and busted through the door. The shadowy creatures had even grown in numbers, probably 20 or 30 of them. Blaze barked, foaming at the mouth. "William! William! William!" a raspy voice said. It was alien to me, not similar to anyone I knew. I turned around and saw them all gathered in a herd, waiting to attack. "Stay back," I said, threatening them with the torching wood. They hissed and collectively stepped back. I threw the wood at them, and they scattered in an instant. I opened the car door for Blaze to go in, and he immediately jumped in the passenger seat. A pair of claws grabbed my ankle from under the Jeep and pulled me. It caused me to fall, and I saw the abomination crawling up on my leg. I hit it in the head with the butt of the rifle. Then, when it hissed with its horrible mouth, I put the barrel in it and shot. It blew its brain out on the side of my car. I hit the ignition, and the car came to life. Blaze was agitated and scared. I patted him on the head and told him it would be all right. I pushed the pedal to the metal and ran over those creatures, feeling their skulls crack under the wheels. A few hours later, I was back in my apartment with Blaze. It was quiet. Maybe the city wasn't so bad after all. This happened last year. A few weeks after the incident, I received an anonymous message saying, "Hello, William. You need to come back to the cabin. There are urgent matters that I need to talk to you about. I am one of your neighbours. Sincerely, Thomas." I did remember seeing a few houses on my way up there, but didn't think to stop. Also, the former owner had vanished into thin air. I didn't go back yet. Maybe somewhere in the future. Story 3. The sound under the cabin. We booked the cabin pretty last minute. It wasn't anything special. Just a small place we found online after scrolling for a while. The pictures showed a little wooden cabin in the middle of the forest. Nothing around it. A short description, a few reviews saying it was quiet, good for a weekend away. That was enough. The drive took about 2 hours. The roads got smaller the further we went. At some point, there were no streetlights anymore, just the headlights from the car and trees on both sides. It had rained earlier. The road was still wet. Everything outside looked darker than it should have been. The cabin was smaller than it looked in the photos. Still nice though. Wooden walls, a small porch, one window on the front, another on the side. Warm light coming from inside. It sat a little bit above the ground, just enough to see underneath if you stood close. I remember noticing that right away. There wasn't much under there. Just dirt, some stones, a few wooden beams. It didn't go very deep, but it was dark enough that you couldn't see all the way in. Inside it was simple. A small kitchen, a couch, a table, one bedroom. It smelled a bit like wood, and something slightly damp, like it hadn't been aired out properly after the last guest. Still cozy. We unpacked a bit, made some food, opened a couple of beers. The rain started again sometime in the evening. Light at first, then steady. You could hear it on the roof. It made everything feel quieter. We were sitting on the couch when I first heard it. A soft sound. From below. Knock. I didn't say anything at first. Then it came again. Knock. I looked over at her. "Did you hear that?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. Probably just some animal under the cabin." That made sense. There was space under there. Something could get in. "Yeah, like a fox or something," I said. We sat there listening for a bit longer. It came back a few times. Sometimes just a single knock. Sometimes something dragging slowly across the ground underneath us. "It sounds like it's right under us," she said at one point. I shifted my feet a little without thinking. "It'll probably leave," I said. We turned the TV on after that, mostly just to have some noise. Eventually, we went to bed. I woke up sometime in the night. The room was dark, just a bit of light from the window. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then, knock, right under the bed. I stayed still and listened. Another one. Same place. Knock. I tapped the floor lightly with my fingers. Just once. There was a pause. Then, knock. Same rhythm. I didn't do it again. Just lay there, staring into the dark. After a while, it stopped. Or I fell asleep. In the morning, everything felt normal again. Light through the window. The rain had stopped. We didn't really talk about it. Just agreed it had been some animal. We packed up, cleaned a little, got ready to leave. Before getting in the car, I walked around the cabin, just to look. The ground was still wet, soft enough that you'd expect tracks. There weren't any. I went around to the side and crouched down, looked underneath the cabin again, same as before. Dirt, stones, darkness. I leaned in a little closer. trying to see further back. Then, knock. I flinched. It came from above me, from inside the cabin. Another one. Knock. Same rhythm. I stayed crouched for a second, listening. Then I stood up. The window was right there, right next to my face as I straightened. For a split second, I only saw my reflection. Then, someone was standing on the other side, right there, less than a meter away, face level with mine. I don't know how long it had been standing there. It didn't move, didn't react, just looking out at me. Its face was too close to the glass, almost pressed against it. I couldn't make out details properly, just the outline. Eyes, a shape where a face should be. Then it lifted its hand and tapped the window. Knock. I jumped back immediately, almost slipped on the wet ground. Get in the car, I said. She didn't ask anything, just ran. We didn't go back inside, didn't grab our bags. We just left. I tried calling the owner later that day. No answer. Tried again that evening. Nothing. I sent a message through the booking app. Explained what happened. Asked if anyone else had access to the cabin. No reply. A day later, I wrote a review. Just to warn people. Said we heard something under the cabin. That someone was inside when we were leaving. It got posted. I checked again the next day. It was gone. No trace of it. The cabin was still listed. Same photos. Same description. Same reviews. Like we had never been there at all.